Welcome to the Sunday worship service of the First Church in Boston, a Unitarian Universalist congregation in Back Bay. The senior minister at First Church is the Reverend Dr. Stephanie May. Her sermon is entitled, Why Be Generous? The music director is Gigi Mitchell Velasco, alongside the First Church Choral Ensemble.
Good morning. Is this working? All right, good morning. All right, let's get started. How are we the first Sunday in April? And it's a great day. Last time I was here, it was a great day. So I want to welcome you to First Church and to the spirit and the excitement that is here and among our members, our congregation. I'm looking forward to phenomenal music today. The choir and the sanctuary is just blessed with amazing sound. However, I'm also here. My name is Mary Ellen Norman. I am the treasurer of First Church, and I also am on the standing committee. And I am making my second pitch for the canvas. And in your pews should be pledge cards today. And hopefully online there's a QR code, or there is also a button to our pledge button. But if you want to learn more about First Church, we have in your pews this fun booklet we put together around Connect, Revel, and Renew in our First Church in our faith. And so our goal this year is $200,000 for our pledge drive. We have gotten started with nine pledges so far, so we need a few more. Usually we are at 65 to, my goal is if we could have 100 pledge units, no matter the amount this year, that would be phenomenal. So I want to encourage you to consider the value that this church provides and the community that this church provides for you today. And after church today, I'll be in the auditorium to help and assist anybody virtually or in person on how to make your pledge electronic. And then Nancy Olson will be joining me on April 28th in the parlor in the Park House to do the same. But I want to leave you with an affirmation that I heard this morning that I think I'm going to introduce into my own world, in my own life today. Because I'm very optimistic about the church and the life of this church. And so the affirmation I'm going to share with you today, and consider it, is the following. I now expect the unexpected. My amazing good fortune now comes alive. Join me in your good fortune, sharing your good fortune. I will be sharing mine. Welcome. Just ring the bell. Okay.
Each month we have, I've introduced a monthly theme, and you can always get the monthly theme sheet in the e-news, and today I also left copies on the table in the back, or there's copies in the Emerson Lounge. And I did put a question up on the bulletin board for the Emerson Lounge that I invite you to respond to. It's on the Community Conversations board. And I've kept you in suspense. What is the monthly theme? So the monthly theme, if you've not already seen, is generosity. And our opening words today are about generosity, and it seemed fitting on the theme of generosity to do it with someone else. So thanks to Hank for being part of this. All that we are, together and individually, is part of the abundance of the universe.
We are made of stars. We are made of earth.
All that we have comes from earth, from the labor of those in our communities.
From the cities, farms, and oceans that enliven us, the world and those who live in it.
We are surrounded by blessing, by grace, and by possibilities.
We are reflected in every human being.
We respect and honor one another's differences.
We celebrate our interbeing with abundance and the practice of generosity.
Come, let us worship together. Thank you. I now invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we light our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism, and that reminder that we are part of a larger association of Unitarian Universalist congregations. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please take a moment now to greet one another, waving hello to our friends online. opening hymn is in our teal hymnal, and it's just a sweet little song, We Give Thanks, and I hope it gets stuck in your ear in a good way all day long. So, three times through.
I'm Reverend Hank Purse. My pronouns are he, him, and his, for those of you who don't know me. It is so good to be here with all of you. And before I get to my story, I just want to say how fantastic last Sunday was. I just want to make sure that everyone, I want to say how great Stephanie was, Barbara, everyone who helped with the choir. The Easter egg hunt was tremendous. Holy smokes, that was just great. From soup to hard-boiled eggs. It was a great service. And I just want to also invite those of you with young people, if you are so moved, you can come and join me afterwards out in Emirates, outside the door, and we can do some chatting about what's going on in your lives as young people. Once upon a time, there were two Buddhist monks who were traveling across China, going to visit a monastery. And as they traveled, they came to a river. And there at the edge of a river was a young woman who said to them, I need to cross this river, but the water is traveling too quickly. Could one of you carry me across? Now the first monk remembered his obligations that he took to become a monk. And part of those obligations were never to interact in any way with a woman, not to speak to her, not to look at her, not to touch her. And he just walked right across the river, and soon he was on the other side. The other monk thought about what she had said, and he walked over to her, and he bowed down, allowing her to get onto his back. And he slowly made his way across the river to the other side, where he let her get off, and the two monks carried on. Well, after a few hours of walking, the first monk turned to the second monk and said, he was so angry. He said, I'm so angry with you. You could have ruined our reputation. You know that our obligations said that we aren't supposed to have any interactions with women, and there you were. You actually let her to climb on your back. And the second monk looked at him and said, I put her down at the edge of the river, but I see that you are still carrying her. Many of the folks who come to Unitarian Universalism come from a different religious tradition or come out of no religious tradition. And sometimes people come to our faith because the faith that they grew up with, they came from, had lots of rules about how to act in the world. And even those of us who grew up here, the faith that we followed when we were children is different from the faith we believe and follow today. Certainly in the church I grew up in, you could not mention God or Jesus without someone having someone getting very upset. Mostly my mom, but still. But being able to be open-hearted, being able to be compassionate, being able to have empathy for others is such an important part of what our faith is. This is a place where we get to come and be generous with our time, with our emotions, and with our money. And I know you hear this every year, but I just want to remind you, none of you are being asked to carry someone else across a river today. Giving money is much easier than having to carry someone across a river. So, with that and the ending of this story, and as you go on to hear more and think more about generosity in your own life, I'm going to head out and the choir is going to come and sing.
Thank you, choir, for the gift of that beautiful song. As we prepare for a moment of prayer, I invite you to take a deep breath in and out, and another in and out. Spirit of life and goodness, we come to this moment mindful of the tangled threads of joy and concern, hope and suffering in our own hearts and in those around us. From the unhoused of the streets of Boston to a population on the brink of starvation in Gaza, too many people are struggling just to survive. We pray for a spirit of generosity in our own hearts and in the leaders whose choices could make such a difference. May we act in ways that foster kindness, compassion, and giving, so that we might all live peacefully together in a shared world. May we also foster kindness and compassion to ourselves as we stumble amid our own striving for goodness and generosity to others. Resting now in a moment of stillness, may we receive the gifts of this sacred moment and space. We leave space in our service once a month for people to share their own joys and concerns that are on their heart, and for all of us to bear witness to what we carry and to have a chance to just have a sense of supporting one another. So I invite you now to come forward and say your name, and if you wish to add a stone to the water.
I'm Grace Greger, and I don't always share family joys and concerns, but this week I'm thrilled to say that my niece just gave birth to a baby girl a couple of days ago. And while this is a special joy, when she had her first child, she was near death for over a week, so it was very touch and go. So this was a joy to the whole family. Thank you.
I'm David Reno, and I share concerns about my family. Some of the relatives have had to move in with other relatives for their welfare. But I'm thinking of the larger family, and I'm thinking about a certain rabbi who a couple of years ago said some radical things about feeding the hungry, healing the sick, and clothing the naked. I suspect if he lived in Boston, he would also say housing the houseless, but that's my perception and opinion. So I think if the people who claim to follow him would do less talking and more doing, and they actually followed what he said by doing their actions, we would have a much better world. They would never be in want of work.
My name's Heather, and I just want to give a shout out to all the many people, many members of our church who work so tirelessly to keep everything going, and have a beautiful turquoise stone to signify that. Thank you.
I'm Miriam, and I would like to celebrate my late father and my husband who have birthdays tomorrow. And I hope you enjoy their surprise that I have planned the eclipse.
My name is Lynn, and my heart aches for the entire world which is burning before us, and I pray for everyone's welfare who has been hurt.
Good morning, my name is Sybil, and just would ask for some nice thoughts for Ira, who has been in hospital for a little bit over a week now, and we're hoping for better outcomes. And beautiful rock for him, and for all your thoughts.
My name is Greg, and I used to live on 6 Marlborough Street, just a block away from here about 22 years ago. I brought my family to this church, and we're very welcome to be here with all of you. Thank you, Dr. May, for making this day special.
Hello, my name is Marcus, and I pray to everyone for a good eclipse because it's been over 50 years since we've seen one fully.
Amen.
Hello, my name is Lucas. I've been thinking about it a while now, but I would like to say thanks for my parents for organizing such a wonderful trip to Boston.
Thanks, Lucas. And before I add this last stone, I'm going to add a stone. Not all of you notice, because it's sort of buried, but on the bottom of the website is a community conversations, reflections, something, I can't remember what we call it, a blog. And I posted there a couple days ago, and because I was so excited, today I'll be part of an ordination over at Arlington Street Church. And then many of you know about the installation of me here on the 28th. But what you may not know is on Saturday, and next Saturday is my 10th anniversary of my ordination. And I won't be here next weekend, so I wanted to take that moment now to celebrate the joy of making that choice and being chosen by that congregation in Sherburne to ordain me as a minister so that I could be here with you all. So that's my joy. And then I will add a stone for all that remains in our hearts unspoken of joy and sorrow and that complicated mix that sometimes we feel. And I will now invite the ushers to come forward for our offertory, our offering, which I like to think of as our ritual of gratitude. So thank you for giving.
Giving and generosity. Hello? Much better. This morning's reading is Giving and Generosity by Albert Rios. One river gives its journey to the next. We give because someone gave to us. We give because nobody gave to us. We give because giving has changed us. We give because giving could have changed us. We have been better for it. We have been wounded by it. Giving has many faces. It is loud and quiet, big, though small, diamond in wood nails. Its story is old, the plot worn, and the pages too. But we read this book anyway, over and again. Giving is first and every time, hand to hand, mine to yours, yours to mine. You gave me blue, and I gave you yellow. Together, we are simple green. You gave me what you did not have, and I gave you what I had to give. Together, we made something greater from the difference.
Thanks, Bill, for that reading. And choir, I love that version of Simple Gifts. Thank you. So I invite you to look at the back of your order of service. Many of you have probably already read this at some boring part of the sermon, no offense. At the top, you'll see listed the 7 principles which are currently part of the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association. While First Church Boston is self-governing in our selection of leaders, our use of resources, and our choice of ministers, we have also elected to join with other congregations to form an association for certain shared work and resources. To help define what all of these 1,000-ish member congregations all agree on, the bylaws call for a periodic review of Article 2 of the bylaws, which lists the purpose of the association and its covenantal promises between congregations. We're currently amid this process. The back half of your order of service reflects the 7 values that are proposed to replace the 7 principles. And some of you know that it's hard to remember things, and so there's this great acronym, JETPIG: Justice, Equity, Transformation, Pluralism, Interdependence, and Generosity, all with love at the center. So JETPIG, fueled by love. There's some great images out there. Over the course of this year, I have used these 7 values to form the monthly themes. Consider it a kind of test run to see if they fit and feel helpful before delegates from all these congregations vote to adopt them or not at the General Assembly in June. And while the order of service only lists the 7 values, in the full proposal, each value is paired with statements of definition and covenant. For example, our value this month of generosity is accompanied with the text, "We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us one to another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality," end quote. In this wording, generosity inspires an open-hearted stance towards living in a shared world. Generosity is about more than just charitable giving. Generosity is also how we show up in kindness and compassion for others. There's a lot to unpack in these words, more than I can or will do today, but that's okay. If we are going to live into this new language as we have lived with the 7 principles, there needs to be layers of meaning and possibility. So for today, I just want to highlight the idea that generosity is a way of showing up in a shared world. Valuing generosity has deep roots in the Christian tradition, a tradition from which First Church Boston and Unitarian Universalism also emerge. Within the Catholic Christian tradition, Thomas Aquinas is a giant in moral teaching. Anyone an Aquinas fan familiar out there? So, writing in the late medieval era, Aquinas' Summa Theologica attempts to synthesize Aristotelian philosophy with Christianity. Each section poses a question to which Aquinas then responds in very careful analytic detail. Question 117 explores generosity, writing, "Next, we have to consider generosity or liberality and the vices opposed to it, such as avarice and prodigality." If you're familiar with Aristotelian ethics, you will immediately recognize the influence of the ancient philosopher. For Aristotle, every virtue is a mean between 2 vices. In other words, every positive virtue lies between 2 negative extremes. In the case of generosity, the virtue lies between the extremes of avarice and prodigality. There is wisdom here. On the one negative pole is the vice of avarice, or plain old greed. I suspect this resonates with many of us who see greed as the opposite of generosity. While generosity conveys acts of sharing and gift-giving to others, greed is the refusal to share, to consider the needs of others, to focus beyond oneself. Avarice is the vice of turning away from others in need and hoarding your resources for yourself. But for Aquinas, there is another negative pole as well, prodigality. While generosity is giving to meet the needs of others, prodigality is a wasteful, extravagant use of resources. As the Cambridge Dictionary defines it, the quality of spending or using large amounts of money, time, energy, etc., especially in a way that is not very wise. The dictionary also gives this great example in a sentence. British visitors to San Francisco startups returned with awed tales of executive prodigality. They told of one company which employed FedEx to move packages from one floor of its building to another. Sometimes a too free use of resources becomes questionable. And so in the Summa, generosity is a virtuous use of resources that lies between a rigid protectionism of self-interest and a reckless regard for a sense of reasonable limit. Finding the balance between self-interested hoarding and unrestrained giving resonates with me because I'm a middle child, and I learned early the need to navigate dynamics of sharing. And growing up on the lower edge of middle class, I also knew there were limits to what is possible. Indeed, as our Unitarian Universalist principles affirm, we are interdependent, living in a shared world, None of us is truly able to live without others, certainly not as children, nor when we become enfeebled from illness or age. Even in good health, our economies and cultures are complex systems of interwoven dependencies. Just consider where our food comes from. The farmers, distribution networks, stores, and all the many systems supporting each of these, including local governments paving and repairing the roads and sidewalks and ports you use. No day goes by when we do not rely upon the work of another. Sharing the world and the resources of the world is a given. And yet, these resources are not equitably shared. Some people have more money, better health, and more leisure time than others. Some, like those in Gaza today, are facing severe shortages of food, shelter, and medical care. But does unequal distribution of resources mean there is not enough to go around? Is there an actual shortage, a scarcity? If so, isn't it a wise course of action to hold on to what you have? Why be generous if some resources are in fact scarce? While there may be some situations of scarcity, religious and ethical teachings still challenge us to share. For example, in the Christian Bible, there is a story of Jesus teaching to a large crowd of thousands in an out-of-the-way place. As evening approached, the disciples suggested that Jesus disperse the crowd so they could go and find food in the local villages. Instead, Jesus insists there's no need, and the disciples could feed the crowd. To which the prudent disciples responded that this wasn't exactly feasible, as they only had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. No matter, Jesus assures them, as he blesses the food and hands it to the disciples to pass out to the crowd. Then a miracle. Not only did that small amount of food feed the crowd of thousands, but after everyone had their fill, the leftovers filled 12 large baskets. As a child, I accepted that the miracle in this story was magic, a metaphysical trick of multiplying breads and fishes. As I became skeptical of such miracles, I just saw the story as a fable, instructing people to just have faith in Jesus to provide. But then I read an account that suggested that Jesus' generosity actually inspired others to open their own bags, to share the food they had stashed away. In this version, the miracle is not one of metaphysical multiplication, but rather of ethical transformation of hearts from greedy to giving, selfish to sharing. As a religious tradition rooted in Christianity, this ethic of generosity to others, of love of neighbor, is part of our DNA as Unitarian Universalists. Charitable giving and helping to meet the material needs of others for food and shelter is certainly part of this generosity. However, in choosing the value of generosity as one of those 7 proposed values in the new language defining a shared understanding of Unitarian Universalism, I perceive a broader sense of generosity as an open-hearted stance towards living in a shared world. If you recall, Aquinas links generosity with liberality. For a long time, Unitarian Universalism has been identified as liberal. And there are, of course, many ways to understand liberal. In this context, I hear liberal as another way to express a tradition of open-hearted embrace of other people and the world. To be liberal means approaching life with a sense of gratitude for what we receive from others and hope that there is enough to go around for all of us. That the loaves and fishes we carry might be enough if only we would freely share with others. Indeed, perhaps by sharing, we might even find we create something more. In the poem Giving in Generosity, poet Albert Rios recounts the many faces and impacts of giving. Through them all, suggests Rios, is a fundamental truth. Giving is, first and every time, hand to hand, mine to yours, yours to mine. You gave me blue, and I gave you yellow. Together, we are simple green. You gave what you did not have, and I gave you what I had to give. Together, we made something greater from the difference. The mutuality of giving creates something greater than a simple exchange of goods. The proposed UU language suggests that the something greater created by giving is a spirit of gratitude and hope. When we accept our mutuality and interdependence, we experience gratitude for all we receive from others and foster hope there will be enough for all. This attitude of gratitude and hope contrasts with those vices of avarice and prodigality that erode generosity. By foreclosing on exchanges with others, avarice erases any sense of mutuality and thus any experience of gratitude for what is received from others. Also, greed focuses on fears of losing what you have rather than fostering hope for a more equitable world. Such fear cuts people off from others and the poetic experience of creating something greater through mutual giving. And prodigality disrupts a spirit of generosity by disregarding any realistic sense of the value of resources. For example, consider lawns in deserts. Are patches of grass along roadways or business entrances really more important than drinking water or water for growing food? Thankfully, there is a movement to ban and remove lawns in desert and drought-prone regions in places like Las Vegas. In an era of climate crisis, I think we will be having more and more discussions of wasteful use of resources, including that of energy. Our interdependence is not only with other people, but also with the earth. If we want to cultivate a sense of gratitude and hope, we also need to generously care for the earth, not profligately waste her gifts to us. Valuing generosity as a religious practice calls us to awareness of our mutuality and our interdependence. We have long been a religious tradition committed to care of neighbor. In the 21st century, we must also consider a relationship of mutuality with the earth that is neither greedy nor profligate. Long a liberal religion, my hope is that today we may continue this legacy by freely caring for others and the earth, with an open-hearted hope there will be enough to sustain us all. May we resist fears that would make us greedy, as well as numbing indifference that might cater to wastefulness. Instead, may we show up with a spirit of gratitude as we come together to share and receive, building something greater and life-giving. So may it be. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 331, Life is the Greatest Gift of All. One of my favorites. It's a big day when I say, let's use this one. So please rise in body or in spirit, 331, Life is the Greatest Gift of All. Please join me in extinguishing the chalice. The words are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. As part of one interconnected world, may we love with abundance, welcome across difference, and work together to support a just, equitable, and sustainable life for all. Amen.